Hello and welcome to the Energy Detox, coming to you for the second episode in a row from on top of a parking garage in western Pennsylvania. Now, unlike last episode where I, Joe Sinnott, was standing in Erie, Pennsylvania, today I'm standing on a parking garage in downtown Pittsburgh. And I'm here on October 1st, 2024 for a couple of reasons. First, because the building behind me used to be called HQ'd Plaza until a couple of months ago when HQ'd was literally taken down from on top of that building. And here on October 1st, there was a figurative takedown of HQ'd just a couple of hours ago when Chesapeake Energy consummated its deal with Southwestern to become Expand Energy, which is now the largest producer of natural gas in the United States, taking down HQ'd, which had held that title for almost 7 years. But again, I'm not standing here because that's any sort of new news. It was announced last week that Chesapeake would be having this new name, Expand Energy, and it was announced that this week at some point the deal would be closing. And of course, it's been months in the works, that deal, so none of this is a surprise. And certainly here on the Energy Detox, we're not a big fan of having messages that aren't timely. So why am I standing here today? Well, it's because just in the last 24 hours, there were two other headlines that have some connections either to Pittsburgh and or the energy industry that made me think, all right, well, what's in a name? You know, obviously a lot of people now are asking, all right, well, how long will it take for people to actually be comfortable saying Expand Energy instead of Chesapeake Energy? It's a logical question that occurs anytime there's some sort of rebranding. Heck, 15 years ago when Equitable Resources became HQ'd, it took some time for people to, if they were employees like myself, say HQ'd instead of Equitable Resources. It took even more time for people to say, oh, you work for Equitable, the gas company, right? And say, well, no, actually, they no longer have the gas company, the utility, the distribution company, and oh, by the way, they're not Equitable Resources anymore, they're HQ'd. It takes time, and certainly it will take time with the employees of the former Chesapeake and Southwestern and the new employees of Expand Energy and all of its various stakeholders. But those other two headlines that made me start asking basically the same question was, one, the headline about the death of Pete Rose. Because you want to talk about somebody where you hear his name, Pete Rose, and think of all of the different things that could come to mind. What do you think of when you hear Pete Rose? Do you think Hit King? Do you think gambler who is snubbed by the Baseball Hall of Fame? Do you think Charlie Hustle, his nickname? What do you think of? Well, again, that depends on your perspective. That depends on maybe what you've heard or think you've heard about Pete Rose. The moral of the story is a name like that conjures up a very individual response to you when you hear it. Similarly, another headline made me think of different names, if you will, and that's because ADNOC, the Abu Dhabi National Oil Company, announced just a couple of hours ago that it would be acquiring Covestro, which, for those of you in the Pittsburgh area know, has deep Pittsburgh ties. And I'll spare you all the details about that acquisition and about the death of Pete Rose and about the Chesapeake Southwestern deal, because that's not the point here on the Energy Detox. You can get that anywhere else. The point today that you can't get everywhere else is how all of those various headlines and acquisitions and deaths of famous baseball players can help you become a more effective leader. That's the point here, to connect headlines, energy themes, and leadership to help you, the listener or viewer of the Energy Detox. And very simply, the question is, when people hear your name, what do you want them to think? What do you want them to say? And if this sounds like a very similar message from the last episode of the Energy Detox, where we talked about the stickiness of your message, well, it's because it is. But it also bears repeating, because you could spend countless hours, if not days, months, years, trying to become a more effective leader. But if you aren't crystal clear about what that headline is and what you want other people to say about you, well, there's a good chance that all those investments that you're making are not going to have the most bang for their buck. Because at the end of the day, it's very simple. What do you want other people to think of when they hear your name? If you were Pete Rose, what do you want people to think of when they hear your name? Do you want to think about Charlie Hustle? Which again, he wears a badge of honor, even though some of the origin stories for that nickname, and again, it isn't universal how he got that nickname. There's two main competing stories that, again, I'll spare you the details of right now. But the moral of the story is it likely started as something that was not really positive. It was somewhat derogatory, and he wore it as a badge of honor. he probably liked being known as Charlie Hustle. Certainly, I would imagine he liked being known as the Hit King, and my guess is he probably wasn't a big fan of being known as the guy that gambled on baseball and received a lifetime ban. Similarly, if you're EQT, now that you're no longer the largest producer of natural gas in the United States, if that had been the thing that you had hoped other people would think of when they heard your name, and I'm not saying that was necessarily the case for anybody, but if it were, well, what do you want to be known as now? Not the company that was formerly the largest producer of natural gas in the United States, no. Probably something about innovation, probably something about the many public initiatives that they share, whether it's their digital work environment, whether it's their Unleash US LNG campaign, whatever that is, what do you want other people to say about you? And similarly, when it comes to Chesapeake, again, do you want people to simply say that you are now the largest producer of natural gas in the United States? Or is it something deeper? Is it something bigger? Certainly with their new rebranding, with their name, they're looking for something bigger, something more expansive, something that speaks to their global impact. But are people going to say that? Which leads us to the next question for you. Once you know what you want other people to say about you, once you know what you want other people to have come to mind when they hear your name, the next question is, well, what are you doing about it? Again, we talked about this on episode 94 of the Energy Detox, and we're going to talk about it again today, which is what actions are you taking? What discrete steps can you take to boost the odds that when people hear your name, they're going to say what you want them to say? And for everybody out there that's made it this far and says, well, Joe, this is just a bunch of BS, quite frankly. I got thick skin. I don't care what other people say about me. I don't care what other people say about my team. We're here to just get the job done and move forward. And to you, I say, fantastic. That thick skin will serve you well. But think about how that thick skin, that not caring, if you will, could be impacting your ability to actually get stuff done. Sure, you might not care if people are casting stones at you or don't like how you operate, don't like how you speak. That's fine. But the bigger question is, if you're in a leadership position, how is that negatively impacting your team? How is it making their jobs just a little bit more difficult because you simply don't care? So that being said, it's even more important for you to say, well, if you could control the narrative, what would people say when they hear your name, when they hear your team name, your department's name, or your company name? And then again, what are you doing to shape that narrative? What are you doing to go out and speak with people and say, hey, if this is not what you think of when you hear my name, what can I do to get you there? Again, that could be a very uncomfortable question, but also a very efficient and important one. So, that being said, might as well shed a little bit of light on the ADNOC deal for people who aren't familiar. So again, ADNOC, again, oil company, taking over Covestro. Why did that inspire me in part to stand here on this parking garage in Pittsburgh? Well, a couple of different reasons. Because Covestro, if you know the history of it, is basically the material science arm of what used to be Bayer. So Bayer, which split off Covestro a number of years ago, basically Bayer maintained the sort of the pharmaceutical end of things, and Covestro became the material science things. And when you think about a name like Bayer, a bit of a classic name, what do you think of? Is it aspirin? Maybe. It's probably not such a bad thing. Or is it the fact that Bayer bought Monsanto a couple of years ago? And again, when people hear Monsanto, they have a lot of different things that come to mind. In particular, I would say probably Roundup. So, what do you think of when you hear Bayer? Do you jump to Covestro, which is now going to be part of ADNOC? Do you think of aspirin? Do you think of Monsanto? How many of you think about Pittsburgh? How many think about the signage that has changed along the parkway on the way to the airport from here in downtown Pittsburgh? Again, pretty big questions, but bring it back to you. If you're the Bayers of the world, the Covestros of the world, the ADNOCs of the world, the EQTs of the world, the Chesapeakes or Expands or Southwesterns of the world, what do you want people to say? Can people follow the bouncing ball, if you will, of different positions you've had, titles you've had, influences you've had? Whether it's the title of Hit King or Natural Gas King in the case of EQT and now Expand Energy. What do you want them to think of? If you've had some black eyes in your career, whether it's something that got you fired from a job or got you in trouble, or again, got you banned for life from the Hall of Fame, baseball in general. What do you want people to say about you? That's the question, with the follow-up being, what are you doing about it? And so with that, as always, thank you for joining me on this second episode in a row from atop a parking garage in Western Pennsylvania. And of course, as always, regardless of who you are or who you want to be, I hope you have a great rest of the week.